So I thought that we could take a look at the story of Jesus healing the woman with the hemorrhage in Mark chapter 5, verses 21 through 34. And Jesus had just gotten out of the boat from crossing the lake. He had just healed a man with a demon, and he got out of the boat, and that's where the story starts. When Jesus had crossed over again in the boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and so he stayed by the seashore. One of the synagogue officials, named Jairus, came up, and on seeing him, fell at his feet and implored him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is at the point of death. Please come and lay your hands on her, so that she will get well and live." And he went off with him, and a large crowd was following him and pressing in on him. A woman who had a hemorrhage for 12 years and had endured much at the hands of many physicians, and had spent all that she had and was not helped at all, but rather had grown worse. After hearing about Jesus, she came up in the crowd behind him and touched his cloak. For she thought, "If I just touch his garments, I will get well." Immediately the flow of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of her affliction. Immediately Jesus, perceiving in himself that the power proceeding from him had gone forth, turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing in on you, and you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see the woman who had done this. But the woman, fearing and trembling, aware of what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction." So I just was thinking that this has a collection of characters in it. It has the disciples, it has Jairus, it has the woman who touched Jesus's cloak, and she certainly is someone who was an outcast or on the outskirts because of her physical condition and what the law said about that. She was isolated and just had spent a lot of time trying to get better, and I'm sure she was afraid and desperate. And then of course there's Jesus, and what really caught my attention in this passage was the crowd. It's mentioned 5 times in these 11 verses, and it just, the crowd was pressing in on him, gathered around him, and yet Jesus was so generous with his space and his time and his attention, and he was sensitive and aware of even just the lightest touch, and certainly that is hospitality, and he carried that with him everywhere. And it just reminds me about how we have crowds around us sometimes, probably not of people like Jesus did, but crowds of responsibilities or worries or distractions, and how those press in on us and keep us from seeing somebody who might need help or attention or care. And yet I see in this an invitation to be aware of the lightest touch, of seeing what somebody might need and asking for the grace from Jesus to do the same as he did. So that's it.